you need.
And today, we're looking at something really unique.
We really are. We're diving into this concise, almost radical 1939 text by Neville, and we're focusing on what he calls his principle of expression.
It's a remarkable piece of work.
Yeah.
And he deliberately made it short. He argued that commands to be effective must be short and to the point.
Right.
And that the foundational truth, it only requires a few pages. He thought anything longer would just defeat the purpose. It would add complexity where simplicity is really what's needed.
That sets the stage for our deep dive perfectly. So our goal here is to unpack this foundational and, I have to say, extremely ambitious claim.
Oh, absolutely.
That man decrees what appears in his world, and not through, the volume or frequency of his words, but purely through his consciousness.
And this text, it treats this as a fundamental and immutable law. It's not just philosophy. It's presented as a psychological mechanism.
And that idea of a short command is so vital. I mean, when we think of creation, we think of the greatest command ever recorded, right? And God said, "Let there be light."
Exactly. That was a declaration of being, not some long-winded petition.
Okay, let's unpack this immediately because it runs counter to, a lot of modern thinking.
It really does.
If man decrees his world through consciousness, why does Neville's work say that loud affirmations or vain repetition often just confirm the opposite of what you want? I mean, why is the world so full of suffering if it's that simple?
Because the decreeing is always done in consciousness. That's the key. It's the state of being conscious of something that is the actual decree, regardless of the words you're saying out loud.
So if you're repeating, I am rich, but deep down you feel lack,
then you are conscious of lack. The words are just a struggle against your true state, which actually just confirms your lack even more.
So the words are basically irrelevant if the inner conviction doesn't match.
Exactly. He gives this really striking, almost harsh example. The dumb man. Without using any words, he is conscious of being dumb, and therefore he is decreeing himself to be dumb.
Wow.
His awareness is the silent, ongoing command being expressed in his life.
To even begin to accept this, we have to talk about the huge shift Neville demands, this reinterpretation of the Bible.
Yes.
We're told to view the scriptures not as a history book, but as a great psychological drama taking place in the consciousness of man. That's a huge theological leap for almost anyone reading this.
It is, but it's absolutely crucial to understand the rest of it.
Yeah.
Once you adopt that psychological lens, the text reveals that the prophets were all in 100% accord that God is man's awareness of being, or simply the I am.
This is where we distill the core identity. What evidence does this 1939 text actually use to justify such a radical claim that God is our internal awareness?
Well, it connects the dots through these core scriptural phrases. So Moses is quoted as saying, I am hath sent me unto you. David thinks, be still and know that I am God. And really significantly, the New Testament phrases like, I am the way, I am the door.
They're not a man speaking.
They're not interpreted as a man speaking, no. They're the declaration that awareness itself, that feeling of I am, is the exclusive door through which everything, all manifestations, enter the world of form.
So the ultimate synthesis here is the definition of consciousness itself. The text calls consciousness the resurrecting power. What does that actually mean in practical terms for, someone listening right now?
It means that consciousness only resurrects that which man is conscious of being. So if I am consciously dwelling on the state of being sick, I am, by this law, resurrecting sickness in my body.
That's an intense and immediate claim on personal responsibility.
It is. It's a fundamental flip.
Mm-hmm.
It leads to this profound realization that man is always self-imprisoned or self-freed.
You are eternally receiving that which you are aware of being, whether that awareness is good or bad.
Absolutely. The world, in all its detail, it just reflects your consciousness. Like a mirror. You can't change the reflection by destroying the mirror.
Right. You have to change what you are in consciousness.
Exactly.
So if our current life expression is rooted in our current consciousness, how do we fundamentally change that bedrock awareness? I mean, how do you transcend the limitations of being John Smith and become something more?
It requires what the text calls being born again.
But not in a theological sense.
No, it's a psychological event. To change your current expression, you have to take your attention away from the real seeming present state, the old man, as he calls it, and you deliberately rise in consciousness to the desired state.
Okay, that sounds simple, but it feels incredibly difficult in practice. If I'm worried about money, how do I just die to that worry and live in a new state of abundance?
It's a mental discipline, you know?
Yeah.
You cannot serve two masters. You can't serve the old state of I am lacking and the new state of I am provided for.
You have to choose one.
You have to deny the reality of the old state by just refusing to give it your mental attention and your emotional energy.
This helps clarify one of the, I think, most confusing analogies in this work, the divine relationship. I and my Father are one, but my Father is greater than I.
This is such a critical psychological key. Consciousness is the Father, the conceiver, and the thing you are conscious of being, man, health, wealth, that's the Son, the conception.
Okay, so if I desire wealth, my awareness is the Father, and I am wealthy is the Son.
Exactly. And the Father, which is pure unqualified awareness, is always greater than the Son, the specific form like wealth, because awareness existed before wealth ever did.
But they're one essence.
They're one essence. The awareness has to impregnate itself with a feeling of the desired state before the physical form can appear.
So if consciousness is the Father, how does that fundamentally change the way we interact with God, particularly when we approach something like prayer? I mean, why are millions of prayers unanswered?
Because people are praying to an external God, a God apart from themselves. Prayer, to be successful under this principle, has to be claiming. It's not begging.
You can't be conscious of poverty while petitioning for riches.
You can't. You're just rewarded with what you are conscious of being.
Yeah.
And in that case, that's poverty.
It sounds simple to deny the evidence of the senses, but if I'm facing eviction, how is that not just, intellectualizing? How do I genuinely feel rich when my bank account says zero?
Well, this is where the discipline comes in. Successful prayer involves denying what your senses are telling you and assuming the internal nature of the desired state. The text offers that famous instruction. When you pray, go within in secret and shut the door.
And what does shutting the door mean here? It can't mean a physical door.
No. Since the door and the Father are both your awareness, shutting the door is the mental discipline of shutting out that which I am now aware of being.
The fear, the limitation.
The present fear, the present limitation, yes. You turn your attention inward, you claim yourself to be what you want to be, and you hold that claim until it feels natural. The moment that conviction is established inside, the manifestation is compelled to draw toward you.
Let's get into the practical instructions for this. If we're not supposed to worry about the how or the means, what are the psychological steps to actually embody a desire until it becomes natural?
Well, the source uses the story of Mary the Virgin, which is redefined as the awareness of being, impregnated by desire.
Right, and her story illustrates two crucial laws.
Yes. First, secrecy. The command to go tell no man. This is paramount. He says, do not discuss your ambitions because others will only echo your present fears and your limitations.
Calling you right back to the old man.
Exactly. Secrecy is the first law you have to observe in realizing your desire.
So you keep that internal conception completely private until it's fully formed. Then what's the second step?
The second step is to magnify the Lord. And since the Lord is your awareness of being, magnifying it means revaluing or expanding your conception of yourself.
Until that new conception is natural.
Until the idea of being wealthy or healthy or powerful, whatever it is completely natural. And when that sense of naturalness is attained, you give birth to the manifestation.
That agreement, two shall agree as touching anything, it's internal then. It's the agreement between the awareness I am and the thing desired.
Yes.
So how does feeling act as the catalyst for this? The text says, you shall find me when you feel after me.
The feeling is the substance of the manifestation. You have to feel yourself to be the thing you want now. The moment that conviction is achieved, the feeling I am healthy or I am secure, the two have agreed.
And the thing is compelled to appear.
It has to. This is why faith is defined as the substance of the thing hoped for, the evidence of the thing not yet seen. It's the inner conviction creating the external reality.
We also have to touch on two spiritual concepts that this principle just completely redefines: tithing and forgiveness.
Yes, radically.
So what does tithing actually mean in this context?
This 1939 work states it so clearly. Tithing is not giving a tenth of your income to a church. I am is the Lord. So tithing is giving to that only God your awareness, the quality you desire to express.
By claiming it for yourself.
Now, claiming it for yourself. When you claim, I am great, I am wealthy, I am loving, you are tithing to awareness. And awareness returns that quality to you pressed down, shaken together, and running over.
That is a huge shift in focus. It turns a financial or religious obligation into a purely internal, self-defining process.
It does.
And general amnesty or forgiveness is equally focused on self-freedom, isn't it?
Absolutely. If you hold condemnation against any person, blaming an individual or group for your situation, you bind that condition in your world because your consciousness is the only reality.
So to free yourself and rise in consciousness,
you must first free every man from blame. You just rest confidently that every man's conception of himself is going to be his reward. You don't have to police whether they get what you think they deserve.
your only task is your own liberation.
Your only task is self-liberation.
Okay, so if we're confronting big problems in the world, unemployment, debts, illness, how does this principle actually equip us to overcome those mental giants?
It addresses them with the giants and grasshoppers analogy from the Book of Numbers.
Right.
Modern problems, those are the giants. But critically, the text says you were first a grasshopper in your own sight. And because of that internal conviction, you then became a grasshopper to the giants.
In other words, you can only be to others what you are first to yourself.
Precisely. Revaluing yourself as a giant, as a center of power and a solution, it immediately dwarfs the problem.
So once we revalue ourselves as the giant, what's the next step? How do we act on that belief and stop focusing on the problem itself?
Well, the ultimate instruction is to take attention away from the problem entirely and to dwell only on the solution. If you're imprisoned, the desire for freedom is automatic, right?
Of course.
You have to take your attention away from the prison bars and feel yourself to be free until that state is natural. And then, he says, those prison bars will dissolve.
It requires total indifference to the current unwanted facts. The text uses the analogies of Daniel in the lion's den and the disciples fishing.
Yes. Daniel turned his back on the lions, his immediate, terrifying problem, and looked toward the light, which was his God, his awareness. You have to turn your back on the problem of debt or sickness and dwell only upon the thing you seek.
And the disciples.
The disciples caught nothing until they followed the guidance of Christ awareness and launched out into deeper waters, which means taking attention away from present limitations and dwelling only upon that expansive feeling of I am. That's the catch.
And this brings us to the critical warning. If we've felt the feeling and made the claim, we must not speculate on the HOW. Why is worrying about the logistics so destructive to this process?
Because doubt and speculation prove you haven't actually attained the naturalness of the desired state. If you're asking how it will happen, you are doubting that awareness is the resurrecting power.
Right.
And the text is explicit. The desire itself contains the plan of self-expression, and life has ways past finding out. Speculating on the means is just serving two masters again.
So to summarize, the world isn't something we operate on, it's something that operates on us, eternally reflecting our internal, unspoken conviction.
You are constantly always receiving that which you are aware of being.
So your answer to that eternal question, whom do you say that I am, that eternally determines your expression?
Yes. If you're seeking salvation from poverty or sickness or imprisonment, the Savior is abundance, health, freedom. You have to claim, I am He.
Claim yourself to be the solution, not the problem.
Exactly.
And the power of this teaching really lies in its immediacy, doesn't it? Neville states, you are today living in the heaven that you have established within you. The kingdom of heaven really is at hand. Now is the accepted time.
You create a new heaven, a new consciousness, so that a new earth will appear.
Your secret, quiet convictions of yourself, those things spoken only in secret.
They're compelled by this law to be shouted from the housetops in your external world.
So the final question for you, the listener, to mull over is this. If consciousness is the only reality, and your world is simply a mirror of your self-conviction, what secret conviction about yourself spoken only in the privacy of your own mind is currently being proclaimed from the housetops of your life?
The world is at your command.